Hey loves, it's Britt, and in this video I wanted to talk about the natal aspect Mercury square Chiron. I think it's the first Mercury Chiron aspect that I'm doing, so this is exciting. I've been wanting to talk about this one for a while, and sorry, I did go outside because I'm a Taurus and it's Taurus season and it's just so beautiful out right now, but they are working on building a house next door and it might be loud, so sorry if the sound's not good. But yeah, let's talk about this aspect. So Mercury square Chiron in the natal chart, people have such a deep mind and they're not always able to articulate the profound wisdom that they are channeling. This aspect can actually cause a bit of, I would say, like social anxiety, or even in some cases like some form of like a speech impediment, or like they can just be extremely awkward and shy when they are sharing their ideas. Now, sometimes the opposite of that will end up being true as well, that like because there's an insecurity, there's a pain in communication, there's a pain in channeling their ideas like into form, they can actually end up being some of like the best speakers, but it's something they have to work on. And something you'll notice when you're communicating with people with this square is that they can actually be very overly like explanatory. Like it's like they really make sure to like explain things very well, and like they're so intelligent, and they're almost like on one end they can kind of like over explain, or like be even overly accommodating in some cases with this square that's coming from a sort of like mental anxiety. So Chiron in the natal chart is showing like a pain point. It's a wound that needs healing. And once we kind of get a handle on it and figure out what it is, it does become a part of our purpose. But until then, it's definitely like an ouch point. And the square aspect is the aspect of tension, and Mercury is our thought process and communication. So this one, that's why it can contribute to a bit of anxiety in communication, and it's definitely indicating a high degree of intelligence and like a deep thinker. But at the same time, it's like on tests or like in school, they might have actually not been like at the top of the class. There could have also been, some form of insecurity there with like traditional education. So that's not always where their giftedness is going to come out, is like in schoolwork and like tests or like university. Like that's not where their giftedness lies. Where they can be really especially gifted is like finding the meaning behind things, finding like the purpose of something rather than like the logical aspects when we have this square. So there's a gift for like, I would say a part of their purpose is actually healing communication. So what often happens with this square is that they could have even been on the other side of like abusive communication, maybe from a parent, maybe from a peer, maybe from a sibling. Like they were maybe verbally abused, or they didn't feel safe to share, or maybe this is similar to like Mercury squaring Saturn or Pluto also. It could have been that someone, a sibling, a parent, or someone from the early life told them they were stupid or their ideas were not smart, and this has caused like a mental block that they are just so determined to overcome with this square. So there's definitely tension between what's going on in the mind and what they are able to articulate. And so there can be deep fears of coming off wrong, and that's like where the tendency to over explain comes from, is like because there's been such a wound in their communication and their expression, they like they want to make sure they're very clear. And so what ends up happening is like a gift for communication, but they're not going to really be the ones that care about, the logical things, or the, and Mercury in a different sign, like you also have to look at the signs that the square is taking place in, but usually it's like their mind is focused on the deeper meaning behind things. They're focused on like the ultimate healing purpose of something rather than like the smaller details, right? So yeah, it really does end up showing a gift for communication, but it can definitely be felt as a communication block with this one, where you struggle to be understood, and you can kind of have a tendency to isolate. Hard aspects to Mercury can really show like introversion, because we don't feel like when we speak with people, when we're like trying to articulate, right, we don't feel like people get it. So with a square like this, we can tend to become more, I'm getting rained on here by the tree. We can tend to become more introverted, just because we feel like, well, I can't explain it anyways, and like there's a safety in their own little world here. Now, that can actually be a positive thing. It might sound like a negative thing, but it can actually be a very positive thing, because when we have more time to self-reflect and be introspective, we come to the profound wisdom and understandings that this aspect will bring. So it is like, but you need to achieve a balance, because you don't want to go totally like withdrawal from the world mode, but you do want to give yourself time to contemplate. On the spot, you're never going to sound as good as when you've had time to meditate on something with this square. And you actually are capable of like understandings that other people will not get to in their busy mind, in their mind that does not have this harsh square, that it shows pain. It does show pain, but the realizations and the wisdom that you'll get to come to, you could actually be a writer with this, because in writing, right, there's editing, there's like, you can write as slow or as fast as you want, and there's no pressure, and that's when the profound wisdom can come out of you, is with that little bit of extra time, or like in a speech that you've prepared. Like, the mind needs a little bit extra preparation, because the other thing with the square too is you might be like too open to others' energy with this kind of like a Mercury Neptune square. You could be like, very high in empathy, that it can be hard to actually think when you're around people too, and that can be a part of the reason why there's this awkwardness or there's this block in communication, because when you get in these situations with all these other people, that's when your mind gets fuzzy, and you get triggered into the pain of what happened in childhood when maybe your ideas were shut down, and then you get extra nervous about making sure you say everything correctly, and then you're like getting all perfectionist in your head, and then that's when it's going to come off. Things are going to come off wrong. So there is a need to go back potentially in like a healing session or something. I offer healing sessions to go back to the root of this wound, where like you felt not smart, or you felt like your ideas weren't valid, or you weren't able to articulate them, or whatever has happened here, and go back there and like reprogram that to like safety. Like, it's safe for me to share, like, you are no better or worse than anyone. Like, your perspective is valid, even if it's different than the majority of the world thinks. That is still very valid. That's a part of your sacred healing medicine, is like what you're going to write about or what you're going to speak about. It is unique. It is kind of otherworldly, right? And it is going to have a tinge of pain and healing, like the transformative journey. That's what you're here to speak on. That's what you're here to talk about. So, and also correlating to the sign and the house placements that the square is taking place in, right? But just giving yourself the freedom to be who you are and think how you are, without needing to conform, without like feeling this pressure to fit in or be like others or speak a certain way. Like, it's funny, sometimes people comment on the way that I talk, making certain clicking noises with my mouth, or what's this thing? I have like a raspy voice or something, or a vocal fry. Yeah, people say that a lot. I have a vocal fry or something like this. I guess you could maybe say my Mercury squared Chiron. It's quite wide though. It'd be like a 10-degree orb, which I don't think I would count. Maybe it'd be less. Maybe it's 9. But I don't really think I have the square. But like, I feel like that kind of theme of like people telling you how to talk, or that like, the way you talk is annoying, or the words you use, or maybe you're too this or you're too that in the way that you communicate, right? Like, this is kind of a theme of a Mercury Chiron square, is like, well, maybe I have a certain way of talking, or maybe I get a little bit nervous when I'm talking and then the words come out wrong, and like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I'm perfect the way that I am, and like, the right people are gonna love my ideas, they're gonna love talking to me, they're gonna love like me for my mind and my mental aptitudes, although they're different than maybe others and maybe what is normal in the world, right? So there's a theme like of pain in the way that you communicate, and then having to heal that and just like own it. And maybe you will have to do some sort of work on it. I'm not saying that like you don't need to take a public speaking class. Like, maybe you do, or maybe you do need to take a class on healing your mental anxiety or whatever. But there is a piece of also just needing acceptance and accepting the self, and like, yeah, not everybody's gonna like you, and that's okay, and not everybody's gonna understand you, and that's okay. See, if you try to get everybody to understand what you're saying and understand the meaning of what you're saying, that's when you're gonna just stress yourself out. Where when you just speak calmly with clarity, like in what and just put it out there into the world, whatever way you're meant to, and trust the right people will find you and love you for you. Like, it's about owning yourself and the way you communicate, and there's nothing wrong with you, even if sometimes you come off wrong, right? You're meant to be a healer in the way that you communicate, because you've gone through pain in this area, because you've been beaten down by the world and criticized, and you've experienced maybe even extreme abuse and in a verbal level, and like, you've been shut down and told to shut up, or told to go in the corner, or whatever, like the timeout child. That's not you anymore. That's the past. That's a memory that you can heal and move on from, and just know that you are smart, and your insights are different and valued and needed. So I'd love to know your experience of this aspect. If you have it in your natal chart, let me know how it's been for you, and was this interpretation accurate or not? I'd love to know. And sending you all the love you guys. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk soon. Bye.